Welcome to this episode of the Founders Speak podcast in collaboration with Couchonomics with Arjun. Joining me today on the yellow table, as I've coined it, is Hiro. Hiro is a founder of a startup called Wallex, which is headquartered in Singapore. So with that, let me welcome Hiro to the table. Hiro, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Arjun. I'm glad to be here today.
Right. Have you enjoyed the show so far? Have you walked around?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kind of made my way through and, catching up with people, finding new things to do, right?
I'm sure you know quite a few people who are here already, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you do. Right.
Yeah.
So Hiro, as I mentioned when we were, talking before the show, as much as I'd love to talk about Wallex, this is more about talking about you as an entrepreneur. I can get into other conversations, but that's another time, another place. So the first question is quite sort of open-ended, right? Three parts to it. First is very keen to hear, what triggered the start of your entrepreneurial journey, right? So what was that defining moment which made you say, I want to do this? Second part of the question is, how's the journey been so far? Talk a little bit about your journey from the time you began to what it feels like now. And while you're actually sharing that sort of story with us, tell me and talk about a couple of, events, incidents, milestones that happened as the journey went along, which have sort of defined you as the entrepreneur you are.
Sure, Arjun. So the reason why I became a founder was actually because I was a VC before this, right? Although even
so you were causing all the trouble.
Exactly. I was on the other side of the table, right? Writing investment checks, meeting with founders and so forth. But even then, I started off my career as a developer in a bank. So I've never really had any founder or operator experience, right? So as a VC, making investments into companies, working with founders, they would naturally ask you, right? Hey, what should I do in this scenario? What should I do here? They would ask you for advice.
And your answer was keep growing at any cost.
that could have been, but I mean, in the back of my mind, I'm like, who am I to give these guys advice when I've never been in their shoes, right? I think empathy was the biggest skill that I absolutely lacked during those VC times. And you look at the guys in the US, the Peter Thiels, the Andreessens, they've all done their so-called hard things, right? Founded the company, exited, and now on the investment side. So it was kind of those moments that I made it a personal mission saying, okay, if I were to ever become a better VC or an investor, or if I were to ever go back into VC, I need to go through a journey of a founder myself. And those were kind of like the deciding moments where, okay, I'm going to become a founder. I mean, it could have been anything, right? It could have been e-commerce and so forth, but it just so happens to be that FinTech was the opportunity. So I decided to become a founder, for that mission.
And how long has that journey been so far?
So I started in 2016, 7 years now. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about this journey, right?
Absolutely.
So talk about, give me, I'm sure, there's a period which you might want to call phase one, phase two. I'm not giving it names, but tell me the evolution of you, the entrepreneur. The first part, which is the VC turning into a founder, right? And then the founder turning it into an entrepreneur because, you can't remain a founder forever, right? Your team grows, you become a businessman.
Exactly.
Right?
So coming from a VC, becoming into a founder, I would say I was overly confident, maybe at times arrogant, right? Saying, hey, I've been on the other side of the table. I know what kind of trains founders have. I know what to do for fundraising. But boy, oh boy, like when we went on a journey of actually fundraising, yes, getting the foot in the door was easy. Getting, just WhatsApping my contacts, emailing my VC network, but actually asking them for money was extremely challenging, right?
Why?
I would say, I don't know. I think maybe because selling your idea, selling your vision is one thing, right? But being able to also prove or at least have that showcasing where you're, making sure that or getting the VC to making a bet on you is a totally different thing. Right?
Yeah, it's very interesting you say that. And I actually have a lot of, firstly, I think you seem like a guy who has developed or already has a fairly high level of EQ because I think you appreciate the shortcomings, right? As you said, you were arrogant. But I think what you said is actually very, very interesting. Just because you bought something 100 times does not mean you can sell it.
That's true. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people from the other side who come to become entrepreneurs, right, don't necessarily understand that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was hard. What
Yes.
happened next?
So that was like sort of like the phase one of my entrepreneurial journey, right? Realizing how difficult it is as actually to fundraise and even operate a company. But yeah, as we go through the journey, COVID hit. It's definitely a roller coaster ride. But as of last year, we were acquired by M-DAQ Group, M-DAQ, signed the papers in February 2022, and kind of came full circle, right? I think I've did my dues as a founder, went through the path, and now being able to really focus on growing the company and get it to the next stage with the group.
Yeah. So you sold majority.
100% acquisition.
100%, and you've stayed back as the CEO of
Yes,
the business.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So now you're a CEO with a yacht parked somewhere.
No, definitely not. Still grinding it out. Still.
So this is fascinating, right? Because you're the first person actually who's come so far, and I've met about a dozen founders who have sort of gone from venture capital, 7 to 8 years running a business,
Yes.
selling the business, staying back with the business, right? Why not just walk away? Contractually, you're not allowed.
Well, that too. But I do feel that, finding the right parent company who gives a certain level of autonomy and who understands your business by supporting it is key to an M&A, right? I've had the chance to speak to other founders who've gone through this journey, who've gone through a journey in terms of getting bought out or exited. I would say majority of them, 7, 8 out of them, want to leave after 6 months or have left already after a year, right? And I do think that that's the result of how the dynamics between you and the parent company. And I think for Wallex, or at least in my case, we've been fortunate enough that our parent company has given the support for us to grow. They know what our strengths are, and just simply supporting that.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I'm going to be very straight with you on this. Did you hang around, or I'm making hang around? That's the effect, right? Are you still in your role because you still feel there's unfinished business?
That too, and also just full disclosure, some M&As, they have a stock component as well. So I'm incentivized to stay and contribute to the growth of the group.
Okay, and so now this is very interesting, right? So there's multiple dynamics here in play, and I really want to actually understand the thinking of a founder here, right? So you start you start a business, right? You literally have to have I don't call it tunnel vision, but you got to have tunnel conviction.
Yes.
Right? You got to believe in this. You got to put your heart, soul, blood, sweat, whatever else we can come up with in this business, right? You then go into this scenario where you get acquired. You get acquired for all the right reasons, right? It's good for the company. It's good for the people that are buying you. It's obviously good for the company that purchased you or acquired you, right? And then you decide to stay around for two dynamics. One is there's unfinished business.
Yep.
And obviously you've found a parent company which is partly obligated you, but partly also is treating you in the right way,
yes.
right? Right. That's actually a lot of forces in play, right? There's a lot of forces in play. Unfinished business, stock options, they're nice to me, right? This is still my baby somewhere down the lines, certain days of the week, I'm sure you wake up and you still feel, this is my business, right?
That's the thing. They still make me feel as if this is my baby.
They do.
Right? Yeah. So I think that's also part of me being motivated to still want to grow this baby.
So do you think you are now more intrapreneurial rather than entrepreneurial? And the difference being that you're allowed to be an entrepreneur, but there is a playpen within which you have to play.
That's right. Yeah. So within certain, framework, we can still do what we want to do, right?
Okay. So let's take the 7 years or 6, 7 years when you were still independent and you hadn't been acquired, right? Tell me about some of the challenges that you had. So we talked about, the ability to sell a business to the dark side, which you sort of came from. Talk about other things, right? What did you have to learn? What did you have to unlearn over those sort of 7 years to make you, in my word, a very successful entrepreneur? Because otherwise, why would anyone have bought your company? It's not just for the idea. You obviously took the idea and grew the idea into something which is, thriving. So talk to me about, that period.
Absolutely. I think the biggest sort of learnings across the past 7 years and now being part of a bigger group is learning to mature as a founder and as a company as well, right? When we were still an independent company, I think at some points we can be a little bit of a cowboy, right? And then go out there and do something a little bit more risky and so forth. But as part of a larger group, and as we go through, becoming pre-IPO or planning to be public in a couple of years' time, I think the company has to mature, right? And what does that include? Putting in processes in place, making sure corporate governance is there, and not being able to sort of just go out there and do risky things, right? But making sure you think about the whole direction of where the group wants to be, and not just me or our employees, but as a group as a whole, right?
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, and I don't have a view on this, right? And it's not a loaded question, right? So is risk taking a function of being a cowboy, or is it a DNA of an organization? Because there are certain organizations, and I don't want to name them, which are fairly large today and have all the corporate governances in the world and are worth billions of dollars, but they have the DNA of taking risk.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't call them cowboys. There are also big organizations which are billions of dollars and they are cowboys.
Yes.
And some of them are very large investment funds also who have invested in ideas where God only know what they were thinking. Talk to me. What is it, right? I really want to learn this. So do you really think it was about the DNA which let you take that risk, or was it because you felt you were a cowboy?
I would say, I think this really depends on taking risks based on capturing the opportunity, right? If there was an opportunity that we could capture, and that meant taking risk, then we would take that risk. But because we are a regulated entity, we have licenses across 3 countries, Singapore, Indonesia, and Hong Kong. I think protecting the licenses as well as protecting our relationship with our banks always comes first, right? So the risks we took, yes, some of them were risky, but they were at least calculated risks that we thought that we can take without ruining our license or breaking down our relationships with the banks. Right?
Okay, interesting. I do agree with you. So I'm gonna put you on the spot to assume I'm a wannabe entrepreneur. What's the lessons here? Give me 3-4 lessons that I can walk away from this conversation and keep it in my pockets.
And I will kind of tie this down to sort of like the pivotal moments throughout my
That's great.
Entrepreneur journal, right? Lesson number 1: things will be okay, right? We had definitely moments where, actually 3 instances where we were almost out of money. Morale was bottom at very, very low, right? We kind of hit rock bottom on those instances, but looking back, because we were able to persevere and just power through it, things would be okay, right? So no matter what, even though you have difficult times, that today may be a bad day, but there will always be a tomorrow, and may that tomorrow be a joyful day. And looking back, you think that it will be okay. Second lesson. So I'm a parent, right? I found Wallex when my wife was 4 months pregnant. So
you're a brave man.
I think throughout the entrepreneurial journey, the support of family was definitely something that was very meaningful for me. It was definitely challenging, right? But I took it as a lesson that we need to embrace every challenge. Look at every challenge as an opportunity to learn, right? And I think being a parent was definitely one of those key challenges. I mean, it was a good challenge, but it helped me mature as a founder, mature as a person. And I embraced every opportunity I embraced every challenge as an opportunity and made it a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
Third lesson. I think it's important that as you are building out your company and that you are growing, you need to look back and work backwards on where you want to be, right? I've seen companies and founders that raise millions of dollars and then they end up, winding up and so forth, but maybe because they were a little bit more short-sighted and they had capital. They had in mind that capital was abundant, right? But we were very, very responsible with our money. We didn't raise a lot, and I think looking back, because we wanted to make sure that we wanted to grow sustainably, that was one of our key sort of foundations that we had, thinking that, okay, capital's not going to be there forever. So let's make sure that we build a sustainable business.
Those are great lessons. I got to thank you for coming in.
Yeah.
Right. I think, Hiro, it was fascinating talking to you. I think you've had a very interesting journey. Right. I wish you the very best going forward. I have a feeling that, you will be setting up another startup somewhere in the near future. That's just a gut feel. Not that you've shared any secrets with me, but, maybe 5, 6, 10 years down the line, you're a young guy. But, thank you for coming in, and best of luck with the future.
Likewise. Thank you, Arjun. Appreciate it.